I'm Shane White, and this is The Process.
Hey gang, Shane Patrick White here with another edition of The Process. On today's Rare Book Tour, we feature TomLovell. Today we look at The Art of TomLovell, an invitation to history. To me, Tom was not only an excellent illustrator, but he was an exceptional colorist. His palette was leagues ahead of his contemporaries in terms of color purity and value control. His work had an effervescent glow, and the amount of research in his historical pieces were enviable. I found this book at a gallery in Kirkland, Washington. I don't even think they knew what they had. This one, in particular, had a rare tipped-in plate, and for whatever reason, I convinced them to sell it to me for cheap. TomLovell was born on February 5, 1909, and was an American illustrator and painter. He was a creator of Pulp Fiction magazine covers and of visual art of the American West. He produced illustrations for National Geographic magazine and many others, and painted many historical Western subjects such as interactions between Indians and white settlers and traders. He was inducted into the Society of Illustrators Hall of Fame in 1974. Lovell was born in New York City on February 5, 1909 to Henry S. Lovell Jr., a telephone engineer, and Edith Scott Russell Lovell. He was the second of 3 children. He was a keen reader as a child, and although he received no early training in art, he often visited the Museum of Natural History in New York, beginning a fascination with Native American objects and weapons. In 1927, he was the valedictorian of his high school, and at graduation he spoke on the ill treatment of the American Indian by the U.S. government. He attended Syracuse University from 1927 to 1931. His roommate, Harry Anderson, classmate Elton Fax, and teacher Hibbert V.B. Klein influenced his decision to become an illustrator. In his junior year at Syracuse, Lovell sold drawings to popular pulp, western, gangster, and detective magazines. Lovell married Gloyd Pink Simmons in 1934 and moved to Norwalk, Connecticut. They had 2 children, David and Deborah. In 1940, Lovell and his family moved to an artist colony at Westport, Connecticut, where he became close friends with Harold von Schmidt, John Clymer, and Robert Loweid. In 1972, he moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico. In 1977, he moved to a 7-acre site in Santa Fe and built an adobe house and studio. In the early 1930s, Lovell shared a studio space in New York with Harry Anderson and Nick Carter. He eventually moved to the artist colony of New Rochelle, just outside New York City. New Rochelle was home to a number of other illustrators, including Norman Rockwell and Mead Schaefer. After 1936, Lovell progressed into providing illustrations for advertising agencies and slick magazines such as Redbook, Life, Collier's, The American Woman, The American, Woman's Home Companion, and Cosmopolitan. From 1940 onwards, Lovell produced covers for several magazines including Ace High Western, Clues, Complete, Detective Tales, Dime Detective, Rangeland Romances, Star Western, and Top Notch. He also drew pen and ink interior illustrations for The Shadow, Courtroom Stories, Popular Western, Triple Western, and Clues. Lovell served for 2 years in the Marine Corps Reserve during World War II. He was sent as a staff sergeant to Washington, D.C. with John Clymer and Fred Laswell to illustrate the Marine Corps magazine Leatherneck. On returning to Westport, Lovell produced a set of historical drawings for National Geographic magazine, including depictions of the Norman invasion of England, the career of Alexander the Great, and the conquests of the Vikings. He took great care in reproducing what he considered to be historical accuracy in the illustrations, including making models of weapons and ships, visiting historical sites, and carrying out other research. In 1969, under commission from the Abel Hanger Foundation, Lovell produced a series of paintings commemorating the history of the Southwest that are now on permanent display at the Permian Basin Petroleum Museum, Midland, Texas. These works, a historical series about Native Americans, represent a turning point in the subject matter of Lovell's work. From this point on, he concentrated on depictions of Native American life, exploration of the West, and Western art. He also created several paintings for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In 1973, he was invited to become a charter member of the National Academy of Western Artists and is the only artist to twice receive their Prix du West award. In 1974, he was elected to the Society of Illustrators Hall of Fame, and in 1975 became a member of the Cowboy Artists of America. In 1992, he received the Robert Loweid Award from NAWA, as well as their Lifetime Achievement Award. In 1994, he displayed several pieces at the National Academy of Western Artists Show in Oklahoma City. The TomLovell collection of personal letters, photographs, and scrapbooks containing tear sheets of his completed paintings is currently held at the Norman Rockwell Museum Archives Reference Center Collection. In 2006, the Norman Rockwell Museum put several of Lovell's paintings on display as part of their exhibition, National Geographic: The Art of Exploration. Lovell said, "I consider myself a storyteller with a brush. I try to place myself back and imagine situations that would make interesting and appealing pictures. I am intent on producing paintings that relate to the human experience." On illustrating for pulp magazines in the 1930s and 40s, painting for the pulps was great training. You learned to tell a story in close compass. You couldn't spread it out over 2 pages, and you couldn't take 3 months to research it. You had to get the job out in 10 days. This took discipline. On historical research methods, when you're painting history, it always comes down to fundamentals. Reading is a help, but writers don't need the depth of information that a painter does. With a few well-chosen words, a writer can set the scene, whereas an artist must know the costumes, the weapons, what the interiors look like, the horse stack, all the 1,000 things to make it come alive. I wasn't there when Alexander marched across India, but I was able to do a painting of what Alexander did by working like hell at it. Lovell died in a car crash in New Mexico on June 29, 1997, aged 88. His 48-year-old daughter, Deborah, was also killed in the accident. If you want to see more of his work, the Illustrator Press published a gorgeous book a few years back. Check it out. It's well worth it. If you like my channel, please subscribe today or tell a friend. And as always, thanks for watching.